Good morning, a good tavach. Hope you had a wonderful Shabbos. Today we are learning Perek Beis of Maseches Yevamos. We had a fun Perek on Friday, and this week's going to be even funner. Um, we have a few sponsorships for today beyond the regulars. First of all, Seder Seder Nashim is sponsored by our dear friends from the Imperial Advisory Group. Their team of their team of CFOs, the best in the business. If you need a CFO on demand to help with your business, reach out to them at www.imperialgrp.com. Okay, today's shir is the Ilay Nishmas. Today is the yahrzeit of Yeshua ben Gershon. This yahrzeit is today. May Hashem have an aliyah. Amen. It should be made Thursday for the God's Mishpacha. Um, Today is also today in the whole week of Sherbach is today is the chasna of Adol Adiel Eliyahu ben Shifra Rivka and Esther Abigail Bas Etatziro. They're getting married tonight. May the young Chassan and Kala build a Bayis Nema B'Yisrael with all the brachas that come along with that, and um, to be with Mazel. Amen. And one, two, three. Yeah. And then, of course, Ilay Nishmas, Ruspas, Simchat Kohen, Aaron Nachman, Simchat Kohen, Yeshua Mordechai B'Shem, Bracha Sabar Shmuel Leib, Binah Moshe Ben Yosef, Mein Hashem Zahav Aliyah, and the foolish thing of Yisrael Baruch Leah, Rachel Bas Pasal Zelda, Arvin Yitzchak Berisha, and the Chaya Bas Tababela, the foolish thing of Sok Shar, Chole Yisrael. Here we go. Okay, so on Friday we learned about the 15 Ervas who exempt their co-wives from chalitzah and yibum. One of those was the wife of a brother whose world he did not share. So we're going to start with talk about that case today. So Mishnah Perek Beis Mishnah Aleph Kate said Ashes Achish Lo Haya Balamo. What is this case where the wife of a brother whose world he did not share exempts her co-wife from chalitzah and yibum, as we learned the Mishnah out in Perek Aleph Mishnah Aleph. Well, what's the case over here? So here we go. Shnei Achim. There are two brothers. Lameis Echad B'hem. One of them died. No love Lehem Ach. And then after another brother was born. So let's say you have Reuben and Shimon. Okay, Reuben dies, and then Levi's born. Afterwards, the second brother was living when the first brother died. Let's call him Shimon. Shimon was living when Reuben died. So he performed yibum with Reuben's wife. So he also had another wife. Shimon was already married to someone else. And he also marries Reuben's wife, the mace. And now he too died. Now Levi died, leaving two wives as widows. Neither of them requires yibum or chalitzah from the youngest brother, from Levi, who was born after Reuven died. The first wife, Reuben's wife, is pater on account of being the wife of a brother whose world he did not share, which makes her an heir to him. Vashnia b'shum sarasa, and the second wife goes out without yibum or chalitza on account of being her co-wife, the co-wife of the erva. Um, so now we're going to talk about a case where the second brother did not perform yibum with the first brother's widow, but only Maimar, there's only a declaration that was a din derabanan that the Rabbanan said should be performed before you take a regular chasna. You have erisin and nisuin, and technically al pidin deraisa when it comes to Yevama, you could just take take her and be kones her through bia, but the Chum came along and said no, you have to do remarry to make a declaration, which is the act of betrothal, but it's not an erison. So um, so let's see. So Asaba Maimar, if the second brother, if Levi performed Maimar with the first brother's wife, as he had no wife, so Levi is is doing Maimar with Reuven's wife, because Reuven again died, and Reuven's wife becomes the Yevama for Shimon. So now Shimon did Maimar, a mace, and then he died childless without performing yibum. Right, so he left two full wives, as we discussed before. But one was his full wife, and he left two widows. Later, he left two widows. One was his full wife that he had already married, and the other one was his wife through minor. Then the second wife, the full wife of the second brother, performs chalitzah with the youngest brother. So Levi's original wife, right? Levi's original wife does chalitza with, sorry, okay, again. Reuven and Shimon were living. Reuven dies. Reuven's wife falls to Shimon for yibum or chalitza. Shimon is already married, so now Shimon has two wives. One he has as a full wife, and one he has through minor. Okay, so now Shimon dies. Now Levi, who's the third brother, he does chalitza with with Shimon's original wife, the low Yevamos, but may not be taken in yibum by him. Since the minor wife had never had yibum, she was not married to Shimon on the Torah law. So therefore, that the Shimon's original wife cannot undergo yibum because the minor wife is considered to have been partially married to her husband, and since the minor wife is an heir to Levi, to the youngest brother, then the full wife is considered to be a co-wife of an heir to him, and therefore forbidden in yibum, and everything, and everyone goes out. So therefore, Shimon's full wife needs to have chalitza in order to be free from married, and Reuben's wife is pat. Great discussion for Sunday morning. Mishnah Beis. Shnei Achim. If there are two brothers, again, Reuben and Shimon, it makes Echamehem. One of them died. The second brother, let's say Reuben dies, and the second brother performs yibum with his brother's wife. So now Shimon took Reuben's wife as the Yevamos. Afterward, their brother was born, so now Levi's born. But Mace and the second brother then died childless as well. So now Shimon dies, leaving two widows, as we discussed before. Here too, the halach is the same. Harishana Yotzes Mishum Eishes Achiv, so Hayibalama. It's the same as the first Mishnah. That the first wife, being Reuben's wife, goes out because she's the wife of her brother whose world they did not share. The Shnia Mishum Saras. The second wife goes out on account of being her co-wife. This is what we discussed in Mishnah Aleph. Also about Maimar. So if the second brother made Maimar with the first brother's wife, so Shimon made Maimar with Reuben's wife, the mace, and dies childless before performing yibum with her. So he left now two widows. That Shnia chalitzah, and the second wife performs chalitza with the youngest brother. So Shimon's wife does yibum, does chalitza with Levi. Lo Yevamos, they may not be taken yibum by him, as we discussed previously. It's the same. It's the same as the previous Mishnah. Why the Mishnah is repeating things twice? No, no. Rabbi Shimon says since the second brother married the first brother's widow before the youngest brother was born. So since Shimon married Reuben's wife before Levi was born, Yevamos so then the youngest brother, meaning Levi, may perform yibum with any of the second brother's widows that he wishes, one or two, either Shimon's original wife or Reuben's wife. Oh, or he can perform chalitzah with any of them that he wishes. According to Shimon, the first brother's widow is considered an heir to the youngest brother only if she is still in need of yibum or chalitzah at the time that he is born. But in our case, where he already performed yibum with her before he was born, she has no connection to him as the wife of the first brother, but only as the wife of the second brother. Therefore, he can perform yibum or chalitzah with either of the widows, and the other one's free to marry. Okay. Mishnah Gimel, Klal Amr Yevamos, that the Chum stated a rule, a general rule with regards to a Yevamos, Koshi Isser Erba. In any case where she is ushered to the Yavam under an Erba prohibition, Lo chalitzah lo mishebemes. Even her co-wife gets neither chalitzah nor yibum, and the same certainly applies to the Erba herself. Isura Isser Mitzvah, in the case where her prohibition to the Yavam is in the case where her Isser to the Yavam is an Isser due to the mitzvah to keep her bin bottom, meaning that she is that she is ushered to him by the bottom, the Isser Kedusha, or her Isser to the Yavam is an Isser due to the need to maintain the kedusha of the kahuna. In either of these two cases, then she has to do chalitzah, and she may not be taken in yibum since she is usher to the yavam. Okay, if her sister is also her sister-in-law, and they both fall for yibum to a third brother, but she's an heir to him. Chalitzah or mishibemis, and the sister may perform chalitzah or be taken in yibum by the living brother, because she has no yibum bond with the first sister, since she is an heir to him. Okay, Mishnah Dalet. Isser mitzvah. The isser that is due to the mitzvah to adhere to Torah law, let's try this again. The isser that is due to the mitzvah to adhere to a din d'Rabbanan, shniyus b'divrei sofrim, refers to secondary Eva relatives who are aser by the divrei sofrim, by the words of the scribes, the early Rabbanim. And there are 20 such relatives, which is discussed in the Rav and the Tosis Yontif, which we're not going to go into right now. Isser Kedusha, the Isser that is due to the Isser that is due to maintaining the Kedusha of the Kahuna, includes the following women. Amana Kohen Gadol, a widow to a Kohen Gadol, and a divorcee or a chalitzah to a ordinary Kohen. Mamzeres or Nesina Israel, a Mamzeres, which is a female Mamzer, or a Nesina, which is a female descendant of the Gavonim, even to a Yisrael, Ubas Yisrael, Nesina Mamzer, and likewise a daughter of Israel to a Nasin or a Mamzer. Those are 4 situations of needing to maintain the Kedusha. And therefore, those would be problems with yibum. Mishnah Hey. If someone dies and has a paternal brother of any kind, even a mamzer, so he is achiv yibum. that brother has a yibum bond with his deceased brother's wife, which must be severed through chalitzah. He is in fact his brother in every other respect as well. Except for someone who has a brother from his father's side who was born from a shivcha kananis or from a non-Jewish, he is not considered a brother at all. So if he's born from a shiksa, then he's not considered Jewish. He's not considered a brother. If someone has any kind of son, even the mom said, Poter, Ashes of him in a yibum. That son fathers his father's wife in yibum. I mean, the father is not considered that childless since he has this son. And the son is chayiv for hitting his father or cursing him. And he is his son in every respect. Except for someone who has a son from a shivcha kananis or from a non or from a non-Jewish woman altogether, he is not considered to be a son at all. Mishnah Vav. If someone betrothed one of two sisters, not his two sisters, for his Makadesh, one of two sisters, and he does not know which of them he was Makadesh. No, saying get Lazu, get Lazu. He must give a get to both of them. He may not remain married to either one of them since he's not sure which might actually be his wife's sister who is an heir to him. It's a mace. So if he died childless before giving a get to either sister, below ach echad, and he has only one brother, chalitzah. The brother performs chalitzah with both sisters because he doesn't know which is his brother's real wife. He may not simply choose one sister and marry her because he might have a yibum bond with the other sister, and therefore he's ushered to that one. Therefore, and he can't do chalitzah with one sister because they might not be his wife. Therefore, he must for chalitzah with both of them so they can be free to marry others. If the deceased has two brothers, so if Reuven dies, he has two brothers, Shimon and Levi. Echad chalitzah, echad miyabin. And one of them performs chalitzah with one sister, and the other one can then do yibum with the other sister. The second brother can surely marry her if the second sister is the true widow. He is simply performing yibum with her, and if the first sister is actually the widow, then the chalitzah she received from the first brother removed the yibum bond from her, so the second brother is not free to marry her sister. So if both of the brothers went ahead and each married one of the sisters without consulting Beis Din, we do not take the sisters away from them. We do not force the brothers to divorce them, because at the present time, neither brother is living in sin with his wife, and therefore it all works out fine. They can all stay married to who they're married to now. Okay. The next case we're going to be talking about where two men were Makadesh, one of the two sisters, but they don't know who was Makadesh which one. So, Shnayim shekitchu shtei achayos. If two unrelated men were Makadesh two sisters. And this one doesn't know which sisters he was Makadesh. This one doesn't know which one is Makadesh. That's a great start to a marriage. You don't know who you would propose to. That's like a big problem. There no things they get, and this one must give two get and one to each woman. There no things they get, and this one also must give two get and one to each one. Neither man may marry either woman, since She might actually be his wife's sister. Both women, therefore, divorce both women to free them to marry others. If you don't know, the person doesn't know who they're engaged to, then they better off leave the marriage altogether and go start somewhere else because they're going to have big problems. If you forget about if you would forget about the birthdays, they're totally going to be toast if you forget who you got engaged to. Forget about it. Mesu, if the man died childless, um, and this man has only one brother, and the other man also has only one brother. And this man's brother performs chalitzah with both sisters. And the other man's brother performs chalitzah with both of them. Neither brother can do yibum because neither one knows which is the woman that's bound to him for yibum and which is the one bound to the other one. So therefore, they are all us and they must do chalitzah. This man has one brother and and the other man has two brothers. And the lone brother performs chalitzah with both sisters. He may not marry either one of them. So the two brothers who were made for the other side, one of them does chalitzah to one sister, and the other one can then do yibum with the other sister because all the other bonds have already been broken, and therefore she can marry the last main brother. So if after the lone brother performed chalitza with both sisters, the two brothers of the other man went ahead and married each other, the brothers of the other man went ahead and each married one of the two sisters without consulting based in. We do not take the sisters away from them because um, once each one has married one sister, and neither man is married to a woman that's other to him, and therefore everything is okay. This man has two brothers, and that other man also has two brothers. And one brother of this man performs chalitzah with one sister. And one brother of that other man performs chalitzah with one other with the other sister. The brother of the first man who performed chalitzah may not perform even with the chalitzah of the other man. And the brother of the other man who performed chalitzah may perform yibum with the chalitzah of the first man. So each man performing yibum is either marrying his deceased brother's true widow or the other man's widow who was already freed by chalitzah and is now permitted to remarry. Either way, he is mutter to marry her. So if two brothers, the same man, went ahead and before consulting based and they performed chalitzah with both sisters, then the two brothers of the other man may still not perform yibum, since one of them would be marrying the sister of his akuka. Rather, even in this case, one brother must first perform chalitzah with one of the sisters, and then one brother may then perform yibum with the other sister. If she is his brother's widow, he is properly performing yibum with her. And if she is the other man's widow, then she already received chalitzah from his brother, and she is not permitted to marry anyone. She can now marry anyone. Either way, she is mother to the second brother. So could consider now if instead of one brother performing chalitza and the other performing yibum, the two brothers went ahead and each married one of the sisters without consulting based in. We do not take the sisters away from them. Do not force the brothers to divorce them, since they are now each married to a woman that is mutter to them. Okay, you following along? Good. Geschmack. Mishnah Ches. Mitzvah v'gadol yabim is proper for now. Which of the brothers does yibum? So it's proper for the oldest brother of the nifter to perform yibum, and he will then inherit the nifter's property. But if the younger one went ahead of the older one from yibum zacha, then he gains the right to the property of the the nifter, since his yibum was kosher. So let's say Reuben, Shimon, and Levi. Reuben is the oldest. Reuben dies, and Shimon is first in line to do yibum. Levi jumps the gun and does yibum, then he gets to inherit Reuven and all his property, and everything's fine. Hanitan ala shecha v'nishtachara. If someone is suspected of having lived with a Shicha Cananis, and she was later freed, oh, Hanachris and his Gaira, or of or if he's suspected of living with a Goita, and she later converted, then this person should not marry the shifcha that was freed, or the giores, since people will say that the original suspicion was true. In Kanes, Amos Miyada, but if he did marry her, we do not take away from him because she is technically permitted to him. Hanitan al ish, in contrast, if someone is suspected of living with a different man's wife, well, it's yada, and as a result, the basin took her away from her husband, and by forcing him to divorce her. Then even if the suspect married her afterwards, Yotzi, he must divorce her since she has already been Aser Deraisa to him. You can't stay married to him. Two more to go. Maybe get Medina Siyam, someone who brought a get from overseas, from outside Israel. This is Mishnah Test. And declared it was written in my presence and signed in my presence. Lo Yisa es Ishto. Should not marry the divorcer's wife, since he'll be choshesh of making the declaration falsely, but the court would accept the get and he would be able to marry her. I'm so sorry. I totally forgot one more sponsorship. Let me just throw this in there before I forget again. Um, um, this first week of Seder Nashim is sponsored as a schus for Tzvi Noach and Bracha Leah. Sefer Bracha B'Atzlach. A little bit late, but we still got it in. Okay. Someone brought it. Okay, so the mace. Someone testifies about a certain man that he's dead. Haragtiv, or I killed him. Haganuhu, or we killed him. Lo Yisa es Ishto, should not marry that man's wife, since he'll be suspected of testifying falsely, so he will not. So that he would be able to marry her. Rabbi Yehuda says, Haraktiv, someone says, I killed them. Lo sinasi ishto, the man's wife cannot marry anyone at all, since the person's admission that he is a murderer disqualifies him from being a witness. Haragnuhu, but if he says, we killed them, tinase ishto, his wife may marry others, since we take his words to mean that he was with the people who killed him, but did not actually kill him. And finally, Mishnah Yud. Hachacham she'aser es isha b'neder al bala. The chacham who forbade a woman to her husband due to a neder, due to a vow, and that the chacham did not find any grounds to release her from her vow against deriving any benefit from her husband, so the husband had to divorce her. This chacham may not marry her after the divorce, because people are going to suspect that they could have found a way to release her from the neder, but he did not do so because he wanted the husband to divorce her so he could marry her. Meyana or shechotza bifanav. However, if a girl performed miyun or chalitzah in the presence of the chacham, he may marry her afterwards with nesh who based it, because he is part of a court together with other judges, because these proceedings require more than one judge. An entire court will not be suspected of improperly convincing the man to perform chalitzah instead of the yibum, or the wife to perform miyun instead of, the purpose of enabling one of the chacham to marry. So you're based on three, one of them goes ahead and marries her afterwards, that's fine because you're not going to chosh the entire court. The chulan is if any one of these men had wives at the time that they freed the women to remarry, and their wives later died, mutaros the women who they enable to remarry may marry them, because these men will not be suspected of having planned to marry these women while they still had their own wives. The chulan shenashul. Additionally, if any of these women married others after these men enabled them to remarry, then niskarshu o nisamanu, and they were then divorced or widowed from their second husbands, mutaros linasulahen, they are allowed to marry the men who enabled them to remarry. Clearly, these men did not enable her to marry in order to marry her, since she actually married someone else first. And finally, the kulan, the taros, the venehan, all these women are permitted to the sons of or brothers of these men who enable them to remarry, since we do not suspect the person of wrongdoing in order to benefit anyone but himself. Thank you for joining us. We will continue tomorrow with Perek. Have a wonderful day.